Welcome to a very special edition of the movie Madhouse. There's been a lot of news, and these two guys are here to kind of break things down for us. Gavin, Tom, thanks for coming on.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you, Rob. Good to see you, Tom.
Thanks for having me on. Good to see you both.
Oh, my pleasure. The biggest thing in the news right now is the SAG strike.
Mm-hmm.
So who can kind of break down what this means?
I'll let the SAG actor go first.
Well, it's really a reckoning. It's a combination of several things that have happened. This is a unique situation. Normally, contracts expire in different years, but this time it lined up with the Writers Guild and the DGA. And what has happened is there hasn't really been a seismic change in how theatrical is looked at as an actor since the 80s. And with streaming emerging, there was always this sort of lip service that companies and now tech companies that are distributing and paying for, actors and artists and people to create stuff. There was, hey, we don't really know the numbers. We don't know what's going on with streaming or whatever. So they all created their own little fiefdoms. But somewhere in that mix, the metrics used to remunerate people that are creating their wealth, are doing it, the actors, the writers, and everything, have been lost in the shuffle. And so it really came to a head in this strike. And what's happened with the strike is it's that moment where all the different disciplines from writing and directing and acting have to look at the people that they are creating for and go, wait a second, how come the model of sharing the wealth, the difference being, in the 90s where there was must-watch TV and you knew there was prime time and they were selling advertising for a certain amount and so you knew you had the most eyeballs. Now it's this sort of thumbnail gig economy where it's like, well, you're in a $250 million film. It's right next to a $50,000 film. We don't really know. We'll give you 14 cents for the view and we have you in perpetuity. And then with the combination of that and AI coming up, it became the sort of quantifying and commodifying people where it's like, hey, we'll just scan you for a day and then you don't need to come back in. We don't need to pay you. We'll use you for the sequels. And that's where it came to a head. The reason that they couldn't reach any kind of agreement as actors or as writers is literally the sort of upper echelon that is proffering and selling this stuff is like, look, why do you have a problem? We're doing great. We're doing all this stuff. And the actors are going, yes, we see you announce it, but then you tell me you don't know what you're making. You don't have anything you can give it. And it came to a head with the strike. And right now, actors are asking, re-examine the way that you are remunerating us over the long term. What does it cost 24/7 to be in someone's home entertaining them, and you're making money but telling me that we get nothing? And more importantly, capturing that unique distinctiveness of you as an actor by scanning you or using your voice or doing it. I literally did a foreign film dub. It was a German film that it was #1 in 21 countries. And at the bottom of the contract it said, by the way, we own your voice in perpetuity, and in future things we'll use that German accent voice to create the character, but you don't need to come in. We won't pay you for that. So, do you okay with that? And they wanted me to sign it.
And it's if you don't, it's not like you can be like, no, I'm going to opt out of that because someone else gets that job. There's no room to negotiate one-on-one, which is why the union as a whole needs to do it. A couple things to talk about there, especially for people that aren't fully aware of SAG and the history of how things are. But the root problem here is sort of on SAG's shoulders, that when they signed the new media agreement. So when internet came about and people could create content that would go on the internet or make a little YouTube video before monetization on YouTube existed, or make a web series, they created a new category called new media, where you could pay actors less, like a smaller fee, but also that there were no residuals because the system of residuals for online video or profit didn't exist. So when Netflix came around and started with House of Cards was their first original show, and Orange is the New Black within a year of each other, they filed with SAG under new media because they were technically an internet show. And SAG should have stomped their boot down right then and there and said, this is a different thing from what we signed up for with new media, but they didn't and haven't until now.
Great point.
Yeah. So
Great.
part of my thing is that I feel like the unions, and I'm not in a union. I'm married to a union actor. I very much respect the union. I pay union actors. All of that I'm fully okay with. But I feel that there's an error in waiting till something becomes a critical problem and then trying to address it. So no matter what they win, no matter what they gain, and I do believe they will come out triumphant in this over. You just can't make the movies without these actors.
Right.
That's the AI part of it. But I think they'll come out triumphant. But whatever that victory is a pittance compared to what they would have got if they kept the system the same, you know. And some of that is a little fair. Where like, you know, well, I guess advertising is coming back into Hulu and Tubi and maybe into Netflix in the future. But the money wasn't there to pay residuals in the same way. Where when network broadcasters, like they know that Law and Order airing on a Thursday night on whatever is going to get this much money in advertisers, therefore we can disperse a portion of this to the actors and the writers and the directors and producers and everything else. Whereas streaming is just like, you know, part of their error is like, let's give it to everybody for $9.99 a month. And now we're at a ceiling of how much money can be earned collectively. Yeah. And the more shows that we create, there's no additional cost or movie tickets being sold or DVD rentals. It's just a completely different beast.
No one's buying a ticket. No one's buying a ticket to your particular show.
Yeah, they are still making. And the other thing I want to say is part of me, like there's a bit of a wry smile on my face when they're like, we're not being paid fairly. I'm like, welcome to being an independent filmmaker trying to deal with ruthless distributors that do everything they can to keep every penny of profit out of the creators' pockets, which also trickles back to not being able to pay the actors any sort of residuals or back end and the crew members. It's a battle that, you know, Tom and I have known for a long time that continues to just have the screws put to it. So I'm hoping that there's a side beat that as the actors resolve things, that there can be a bit of a, okay, hey, can we talk about indie film now and how we need to just like crush that system next? Yeah.
Right. Well, this actually came out to light a couple of years ago indirectly because Scarlett Johansson sued Disney because in her contract, she got a portion of the box office sales. Yeah. But because of the new model, because of COVID, they released it on streaming and then went to the theater. Yeah. Right. She has no say in the streaming side of it.
Yeah.
But she has a contract that clearly states that it was supposed to go theatrical first. And by that, and every right, good for her for launching that lawsuit, good for her for it being one of the biggest movies of all time so it could get the attention. I understand that the studios had to shift, but the short-sightedness was they probably should have had a conversation with her and her agent and lawyer and said, hey, we need to compensate you somehow differently. Do you understand that we have to put this on streaming because of the unusual times we're in? And is there an agreeable middle ground? And they didn't do that. They just did it, expecting that nobody would take the next step. Now, Scarlett Johansson can afford a lawsuit. Right. Every other actor who only gets to do a guest star once a year or gets their 5 lines and under as a day player and is just struggling in their career. You know, all those people earning less than the $26,000 a year that it takes to get your SAG healthcare. They don't have the money for a lawyer. They don't have the ability to fight the machine. And that's where the union and a strike and everyone rallying together is super important because, there's a lot of people saying like, oh, all those rich asshole movie stars just want more and more and more. Yes, because they're worth more, because it's a system of they won't be rich asshole movie stars. They might still be assholes. They won't be rich if the system keeps going this way.
Exactly, because it's a meritocracy.
And Canada's been like this for a while. The Canadian system, even if it's a big American show that comes to Canada to film, when they're hiring an ACTRA member, which is Canada's version of SAG, they're getting their day rate plus a buyout, which means they're getting an agreed rate of maybe double their day rate or 50% of their day rate. And then that's it. They will never see residuals, even if it's an American show that's going to go on a network where the SAG actors working on the show will get residuals. So Canada's already been in the system for a while, and it makes it much harder because as an actor, you have to work a hell of a lot more days in a year, which you have no option or control over. You are at the mercy of someone hiring you. Not to mention that money has to cover all of the time you spend auditioning and buying your own cameras and having your Vimeo Pro account to upload auditions to. Like, so a lot of the onus and the expenses more and more on the actor, and having this casting website like Casting Workbook and having actors access and all this stuff that you're now paying for, and they keep paying you less, but your cost to be able to do the thing and the cost of living just exponentially increases. And yeah, it's time for a reckoning. And I really hope something fair comes out of this, because there's no way that streaming goes away. Everybody goes, well, there's still network TV where we can get residuals. There won't be. NBC with Peacock, like all of them, it will be streaming only. Cable is dead, essentially. People still have it, but it's fading away. Yeah. It's like saying landlines. People still have landlines, but I don't know what AT&T's like percentage of cell phone plans versus landlines are now. It's going away, so it will all be streaming. So the fight needs to happen now.
Yeah. Right. Like even myself, I do not have cable or anything.
I haven't had cable no, that's a lie. I have Bell 5 TV, which is like having AT&T right now, because I wanted their 3 gigabit internet package, and it came with a year or two of Bell 5 for free. I gave it to my mother because I'm never going to turn it on. Sorry, I'm going to turn it on when my show, The Boo Crew, airs October 1st on Bell 5 television across the majority of Canada. I will tune in, but generally I don't watch live to air TV or anything.
Yeah, I used to have satellite, and I got rid of it several years ago. I haven't looked back. And Gavin raised a bunch of great points. The working backwards through that, yes, the cost going up. Our job as an actor is auditioning and promoting, and those costs go up, especially after the pandemic, because now they want you to self-tape. So now you're shooting, you're uploading, you're lighting, you're keeping your equipment and your camera. I literally I sit here at my desk. Stuff that's on TV was created sitting at this laptop with the mic, because they don't want to pay for a studio. I've had a camera dropped off for a commercial, and they said, "Hey, can you just shoot it and then send it?" And I shot myself in a commercial, shot it, and I got no more money than I would have if I just acted in it. And I lit it, shot it, edited it, and sent it to them because I needed.
You're literally a zoo animal being asked to build your own cage.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy. And you're talking about Scarlett Johansson. That did shine a light on it, but it happened before that, actually. And it happened to people like me. I'm a filmmaker, do my own stuff, but I also work, guest stars and stuff like that. So, for example, I did a guest star in The Office. Well, that was for NBC back in the day. But because each production company or each distribution entity created their own ecosystem and their own streamer, they don't have to sell it to a third party where money changes hands like it did before, which drives it. So what happened to me with The Office is, it's prime time, man. You make some money. All of a sudden, NBC sold it to themselves at NBC.com for $2,000, the series. And my residuals are based on the sale price. So I get residual checks for less than the cost of the stamp.
If they had sold it to like Showtime for a deal, they would have wanted the most amount of money, because it's
the most money they could possibly get. Exactly, Gavin. And so, for example, Disney sells something to Hulu. They own Hulu. So this Disney show that I did, you see a residual going from like $200, which covers, uploading stuff or paying for LA casting, to 14 cents. Because the sale price was $500 for the series. We'll sell it to ourselves.
And you've seen that, even something like you've done the guest star work. I know it through Sarah's experience. Something like Law and Order, without talking numbers, like residuals are a significant portion of actors. If you could do a guest star a year 10 years ago, you were kind of set where you had at least the basic financial safety net of like, okay, nothing else comes in this year. I won't have to have a side job. I can get a side job if I want to also have a cabin and a boat and a vacation, but I don't need to survive this as a career. And that's still great. It airs on TV, but where does it go after television? It ends up on a Netflix. It ends up on Hulu. It ends up streaming here and there. So the residual amount is instantly less, but year after year continues to get smaller and smaller because the majority of people are watching it, or at least an equal number of people are watching it on a streaming platform where the residual system is different. They sold it for a lesser price than they would have just re-airing it on television. Like, remember, like I try to think about how much money like Hank Azaria made from not only The Simpsons, but then when they would have like, you know, a channel in Canada had like, you know, Simpsons Marathon from 3 to 6 p.m. every single day of the week, all year long. You know, like that's real money in residuals. That's an insane amount of money. And it's just it's pittance now. It's such
it is
an amount of money.
Importantly, the perception is, oh well, these actors are making residuals for nothing. No, residuals make you a better actor, and what I mean by that is residuals are the only thing that free you up to practice your craft, to be able to go to auditions, to be able to do a live show, to be able to work on scripts. If you don't make anything, your image, when they reject you, they're rejecting you. There isn't some other thing you can do in the meantime. And the residuals make you a better actor because it frees you up to do the thing that makes your performance good. And more importantly, without those residuals, you're actually saying, well, that's not work. No, that wouldn't exist. There's not a thing. If I walked from each person's house and did a one-man show for them to entertain them, I would want to be paid. So the perception of like,
you don't get paid for the first one in the neighborhood and then nothing for the next 30 houses you stop by, right?
You'll just scan me and then it'll be reproduced. You never have to pay me again. But you see my point is the you know, for someone who doesn't do it as a living, like, oh man, what a great deal. It's like, no, your job is driving and learning and practicing. You pay a surgeon so much because for that hour you want him to have the experience, the expertise, and having done the surgery before to do yours right. When you hire an actor, you want to hire someone who it's not fun because they're normally a dentist. You want an actor who for the last 20 years has been on stage, has been learning stuff, knows stagecraft, knows what to do on a set, knows how to be a character, and I can't do that if I'm not making a living at it.
But Tom, there is a scenario where you hire that dentist / actor because they've agreed to fund your indie movie as long as they have a small role in it. And then you try to talk them into how this role as the cab driver is so crucial.
So important.
This is the role. It's only 6 lines and it's from the back of the head with a little bit of your face, but you want to be here.
Dentists love movies. My dentist talks to me about Asian cinema every time I go there. I don't know what it is, but dentists are wonderful for asking for finance for movies. I will give you that.
It worked for Sam Raimi back in the day, right? It can work for us all. But
exactly.
The other thing I want to say too is that, like, with SAG and any of the unions, the Writers Guild that's on right now, there's a precedence in whatever happens in the film technology side of things, TV technology side of things, streaming, always happens in music first. Because music are smaller file sizes. It's much easier to, like, when digital takes over, a new format comes out, you can stream an audio file with much less need for a high-speed internet connection, over a cell phone signal with lesser data. It always hits the music industry first. And then it's the same way, like with pirating of movies. Like the minute that the Napster thing happened in 2001, the film industry should have said, we need to build a protection and figure out how to stop this now. Do they do that? No, they wait till torrenting and everything is a massive problem. And then to go, it's that scene in The Holy Grail where they're watching the guy come over the hill over and over again, the 2 dumb-witted guards. They just see it happening. And like, he's going to get there. And all of a sudden he's just there and stabs one of them and runs by. And the other guy goes, hey, you can't go in there. And I'm just like, that could be a problem. The music industry brought the Trojan horse into the film industry and then just let it run wild. And I think there's, that said, it's, so when Spotify happened and their pitiful residual system, like what's happening with film and actors TV is not exclusive. It's arts as a whole,
Agreed.
And it's happening in music, but it always happens in music first. And you could record labels are the original bad guys in terms of how to rob artists blind. But then the industry started to get robbed blind because of what was happening. That moment hasn't happened with film and TV. I think AI will be the thing. Part of what I think some of my friends think I've lost my mind on Facebook, just trying to share like some basic thoughts about where AI is heading. But I also feel like all of this battle with the studios and the streamers, which is necessary now, is missing the next thing where AI is also going to compete with the studios and the streamers, when anyone at home can ask their, Google Assistant or TV to make them a product, and it will spit it out in real time. And for folks that don't believe me, look at the Wes Anderson Star Wars trailer that made all the buzz. Listen to the new Nirvana songs that are released that AI created, or John Lennon singing Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, when you're able to sit in front of your television or stereo and say, whatever your favorite band is, living or dead, just say, hey, I want a new Grateful Dead record, and it finishes, and immediately you can say, make me 12 more songs, make me 12 more songs. And if anybody doesn't think that's coming to film, and they go, oh, well, it doesn't look that good. But I'm like, let's go from Toy Story 1 to whatever Pixar is making now. And then the other thing that people forget is that, yes, AI is a tool, and it's not actually artificial intelligence. It's still a learning model, and it's still, but its rate of growth, it's the Kyle Reese quote of like, it can't be reasoned with, it can't be bargained with, it doesn't eat, it doesn't sleep. All it does is work to replace you. And it's whereas everything else was a human-driven tool where we had to get better at it. We had to figure out how to adapt it to be creative. And now it's just able to do it on its own. And it will hit a point where it's, almost in real time or whatever. Somebody just commented on the Black Mirror episode. Everybody should watch Joan It's Awful, and then yell at Netflix for producing.
It is. He raises a great point, Rob. Here's the thing. AI is a soulless genie, as far as I'm concerned. It summons things, but what it does that I think is insidious is it eliminates the desire in humans to learn the disciplines that it takes or feel the joy of creation.
Mm-hmm. This is one thing I've been saying for a while. It's Jeff Goldblum all over it again. It's just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Absolutely.
Like, look at all the automation.
You're absolutely right, because think about this. Without learning the disciplines of creating it, without feeling the joy of creating it, you're like, oh, I can just type my book in and this AI voice of Morgan Freeman can read it right away. But the AI isn't enjoying the book as it reads it. It's not going to make nuanced choices. It's not going to think, oh, this is really good. I feel something. I'm synthesizing something as I'm reading this to people. It's not going to do that. AI, here's my example. If you had a world where everyone could be augmented to sing in the millions of different styles without learning music, without knowing the disciplines of singing, they could do all the singing. What's the incentive for the one person who can sing, who has a unique voice? What's the incentive of them to learn to sing? How would they make a profession where they could charge to be singers? And the minute they're distinctive, if you could scan them for one day and add their distinctiveness to the collective, and everyone the next day sings just like they do, from this point forward, where is the new stuff to sample going to come from? Where is the kid who's sitting there going, well, do I learn the violin because I can go online and go, give me a symphony in the style of Brahms and Tchaikovsky, and it's instant. Who's going to take the discipline of years to learn to play that when you can just sample? Are we going to be recursive? Are we going to say, okay, in 2023, we stopped creating new stuff and started resynthesizing Stephen King? If we're a writer and you don't learn the discipline of outlining a script, because you can go outline in the style of, the Save the Cat, the following idea, and it comes up, what generation next is going to go, why is it outlined like that?
And technology's always had that, the calculator versus learning math and long division and things on a piece of paper, the word processor and spell check versus using an editor or having to just learn to spell so that you didn't make those mistakes while typing, because it was frustrating to correct when you were typing on paper. I'm guilty of all of that, because you go like, this is faster and easier for me right now. We're rarely thinking about where it goes in the future.
Right.
I think because like, I'm not a motion graphic guy, but now I can download a pack and with a couple clicks, customize it to what I want. And you wouldn't believe that I wasn't a brilliant graphic designer. Right. And that's still a tool that I have to program. Now that I can say to AI, make this thing, like websites like or software like Midjourney, Dolly, where it's a text prompt. You type in the image you want and it creates it. And I was like, oh, this must be bullshit. And I use it for the first time and I go, what?
Yeah.
What the heck is happening? Like, and all of these things, and you do like, I'm a broke artist. I'm trying to make indie films for under $100,000 because that's the easiest sort of access I have to get a movie made. And you go like, I don't need a storyboard artist. I don't need this. Oh my God, I don't need to license art to hang on the walls and pay painters and things or beg friends for favors. I can just print one of these things that I created on my own and hang it on the wall. Like
exactly.
But
if all those people disappear, Gavin, then there won't be anyone new to sample. And that's the thing. We're sampling the work of someone that took 40 or 50 years to get there, where it's like, give me a Chris Foss painting in this style of a spaceship doing this and going that. Well, Chris learned how to paint. Yeah. We're not talking about a word processor that makes writing easier. We're talking about a brush that paints the picture.
Yeah. And I think the thing there is also, so much. We also have to forget that, what's the realistic percentage? 75% of entertainment is just homogenized content garbage. Right. And 25% of them, being generous, is art, is original, thought-provoking, challenging, like going out of their way to do something different in film, music, everything. But, when people go like, oh, it's never going to replace us, I said, you're forgetting about 75% of the population that consumes this,
it's good enough.
Lowbrow, like anybody who's watching just reruns of The Office over and over, and that's all they subscribe to, Peacock for, or when it was on Netflix. The minute they can make a new Office episode and have more of the thing they like,
that's all they'll do.
They're going to do it. And it's the battle of like, we're artists and we have souls. I'm like, so much of even some of the movies that I enjoy, they're soulless. They're just like popcorn movies. Right. They're not designed to be
to push the
I think when you think about, AI's ability to significantly impact that portion of creativity first, before it gets into being original, maybe, that's the scary thing to me, because it will eliminate more and more and more jobs. And, there will always be human-made films, the same way there's still live theater and live concerts and everything else. But it's already a Hunger Games challenge to try to be a filmmaker and get into that sliver of making a living at a career. Right. When you close that gap to this, there's just not room for everybody trying to do it. So it will eliminate jobs and the human need for creation.
I think it's weird because it's our need to streamline and make things easier for people that is basically killing industry, period. It starts in the 60s with, automating factories and then putting computers in factories. You decrease your employee count. Now we have self-checkout, right? So you've reduced employee count. Yeah. Right. But the population is increasing.
Yes. And those people need a job to buy your products. And you're absolutely right. When you prioritize the efficiency and the volume of art over everything else, then you get in trouble. When you quantify art of like, well, this was popular mixed with this, I'll resynthesize that as the only thing, that 25% Gavin's talking about has no incentive to exist. And yes, as he says, there's going to be real films made by people, there'll be live theater, but that won't be a profession. That won't be something you can make a living at, and won't be anything that people want to see. I mean, are we conditioned for AI? Absolutely. I'll tell you why. Auto-tuning. It makes the voice, it makes percussion, it makes everything perfect. And we've conditioned an entire generation now to see that as normal, and it feels wrong if it isn't. If you listen to Led Zeppelin, my son's 18, you listen to that, he's like, what's wrong, man? He's off, and that note was off or something. But that is AI. We've made humans that way. Look at people's faces on Instagram. It feels off if they don't have a filter and the woman doesn't look perfect. You go, nah, she's not great. But if you show a real face, it feels off. So we've already conditioned people to see perfection as normal, to see the robotic or the artificial as the norm is already in the zeitgeist. And for me, the problem with this, again, the soulless genie, is it has not freed us from the mundane to do the higher art. What it's done is free us from the higher art so that we're free to do the mundane. It can't mow your lawn. You can mow your lawn, but hey, do you need a legal doc? I can do that instantly. We don't need paralegals anymore. Paralegals won't have a job. Diagnostic people for medicine, we don't need them, and the AI is perfect, and it works 24/7. Doesn't need love, doesn't need money, doesn't need encouragement, and doesn't get any joy from its job.
And it
But it's
won't stop
perfect.
till you're dead.
It won't stop till you're dead, and we welcome it because we're human. We go, hey, this is really going to destroy us. Let's do this.
When I was talking to Christina last night about this podcast, she goes, AI won't destroy the industry. I said, it will indirectly, because right now, if I wanted to go get a Laserdisc copy of Vertigo, I can get it, but it's going to cost me $500 because, it's so rare.
Scarcity. Yeah.
That's what's
you also don't forget the cost of the converter, because do TVs ever have RCA jacks in them anymore?
They don't have HDMI hookups on the back of those Laserdisc players.
Yeah, it's modifying it. You're absolutely right. And I unfortunately, I don't want to sound like doom and gloom, but it is going to destroy everything that's a profession. And because a profession, amateur, there's nothing wrong with being an amateur, but it's that you don't make the expectation of making any money at it. You can be great at something, but you're not going to make any money. What it will do is destroy every profession that makes money. And what I mean by that is it's the discipline of, hey, I go to law school, I learn it. Well, AI's already passed the bar at 100%. So now you don't need paralegals. Now you really don't need a lawyer. Now, McDonald's is automated. So, kids or people immigrating to the country, we don't really need them. So what robots did to blue collar jobs, this will do to white collar jobs. And for example, it's not just us. In India, I was just reading, the biggest customer service company in the world in India just fired every single customer service person and has replaced them with an AI that responds just as well, and no one knows any difference.
Well, there's nothing more frustrating than calling your phone company and getting that robotic voice that you're just like, I just keep pressing 0 until a human shows up.
Well, now they can make an Indian person sound exactly like an American with an American accent. It will respond in exactly the same way, and it will say exactly what the company wants them to say without variation. It will never have to be honest.
It will probably get immediately to when it hears the person. I was just thinking about this. When it hears somebody with a southern drawl, it'll probably respond to you in that, so that it sounds more friendly.
Exactly. That's insidious, but you're absolutely right, Gavin. That's brilliant. Yep. And so, Rob, I think it is a big problem that we have a real problem as humans. Like Gavin and I are creators. We like to create stuff, but also the cool thing about science fiction is it's a warning, and we have done it again. We have created the infrastructure and the technology to do something without the morality of the underpinning. It's like amoral capitalism. Yes, making money's great, you do it. But if you do it at the expense of everything, if firing people is a profit, if people are a liability instead of an asset, and you're like, hey, you just did this thing for me, now I need to get rid of you so I can make more money. That attitude transformed into the creative, into AI technology. It'll be, well, concept artists. I mean, do we really need them? We've got like 40 years worth of people's work. We can do that, but there won't be any new concept people.
And I think the biggest awareness we've had, and the public has had, of the entertainment business versus the art of making films is the reshifting it at HBO Warner Brothers, where they just shelved the not yet finished Batgirl movie for $80 million tax write-off versus releasing it. And then Disney sort of quietly, it's not even that big of a talk, like the Willow series that they did, the Mighty Ducks, and a couple other things. They're just gone from Disney Plus and don't exist anymore because they're filing them as a tax write-off, or they're going to they're getting a tax write-off and then they're going to try to sell they're going back to the old way, try to sell them to another network or someone to make money licensing it out elsewhere. And you're like, that's insane. We're like, for the first time, like torrenters and pirates they're now historians, because if you have copies of those things, you were the only one that has kept that piece of art, available for people to see. Like, we're going to go back to like tape bootlegging and things. You know? But I think, that's infuriating to me, that as a creator, that you could work so hard on something, you finally get the money to do it, you get your cast. Like, there's tons of times where like you don't get to camera and it gets shut down, or you get through production and then you run out of money for posters, something else happens, or you get a distributor and the distributor shelves it, or it takes years to come out or whatever. But to get it released to the world and completed and then yanked away, and there's no, it's not like somebody ran into Blockbuster and scooped up every single copy. They just went boop, and it just didn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
That's
we're
wild to me.
renting everything. We don't own anything anymore when you rely on a digital delivery service. We're basically relying on fluid licensing. Like as a filmmaker, I really want to live the rest of my life where I have an idea on Monday and I'm doing it on Friday, and I want to have some kind of an outlet. But like Gavin was saying, if it doesn't exist on physical media, literally, if a licensing agreement goes south or changes or decides to go, if I go to Canada and it's not licensed there, it disappears. It doesn't exist. And we're not talking about little films. Like try and find Cocoon right now. It's nowhere. There's no Cocoon. Try and find The Great Race with Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. Gone. If I didn't have a DVD of it, we say we have a selection of all of the human experience, but have you noticed it's starting to contract again? If we get rid of all the classic movies because they were only remastered for DVD, well, they're good enough on streaming. They're not going to do extras. They're not going to remaster it over and over again because the industry's not there. You're not going to make any money. It's the same. And I want to be making indie films, but I don't want them to go out and then just disappear. And literally, if you didn't have that on the streaming service, it doesn't exist. That's a horrible existence.
Yeah. Ryan just mentioned this really quick. It's also taking paying eyeballs away from original content. My friends are into AI cover songs of Elvis singing Sir Mix-a-Lot instead of new bands or even just Elvis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it will just continue to get more compartmentalized where you can just create whatever you want to so you'll hear a song on the radio and be like, man, I wish this person sang it. Like you'll get it.
And they'll
that
do
person
it.
doesn't even get the pitiful streaming royalties from Spotify because you're over here, and yes, there's going to be legislation. They're going to definitely try to fight this and fight the use of likeness and stuff. But I don't know why they're not already. To be very crude, I can watch the cast of Harry Potter fuck each other right now on the internet with deep fakes and things that are done with porn.
What's that website?
And people go if Emma Watson is that her name from?
Yep.
If Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe, if they ever see themselves in a TV commercial and it's not them doing it, they're going to be so mad and sue. I'm like, if they're not mad about the fact that they're fucking each other and they can't make sex safe, why do you think that this is the time they're going to rise up?
And how do you even track it? Yeah, you said music leads it. I would argue also porn leads the industry and everything. The reason VHS exists, porn.
The reason the internet exploded. We got faster internet.
And so
nothing worse than on a dial-up waiting for that one JPEG to load. Come on.
Why do you think the internet got faster? Porn. And so that's the thing, Rob, is for guys like us who are just jobbing guys trying to get stuff done, it's a blessing and a curse. Yes, you can become a one-stop shop. Like I used to make money at it, doing people's visual effects and doing voiceovers and doing that stuff. All that's going to go away. Now, my ability to make my own stuff was really predicated on being able to eat based on that stuff. But if Gavin can push a button and composite something together and not pay me $400 for it, what am I going to do? What is my job? I've been doing this 30 years. What's the thing that I do that I make money at now? You can't lateral and suddenly be this other thing and make the same money. So we haven't thought about the ramifications of that. As
I remember my father is an artist and he's a photographer and a painter and a gifted writer. And he used to do a small part-time business of restoring photos. And back then he would, there'd be a damage, somebody's grandfather from World War II that had been folded up. So it's got all the wrinkles, there's a tear in it, it's got a coffee stain on it. And he would take it, he would rephotograph it, like perfectly on a large piece. And he could airbrush. So then he would go in and fix all of the mistakes with airbrushing and then rephotograph that. And there would be this new restored thing. And then the day that he got access to Photoshop and photo editing tools, and you're like, oh, just take the clone brush. Just, there's that moment of all this time and energy and skill that I developed was replaced by a click, and it can be exciting because you're like, oh, the output I could do here. But if you're not, if you've trained your whole life and told specializing in this is going to sky's the limit, you should be an Unreal 5 engine virtual production background person. This will last forever. But it's I'm going to have it in my garage, and I'm going to like the AI is going to do whatever I want. Like that's already like a dead industry, in some ways. You might get 5 years out of it, but it is scary. And I think like, software like Adobe Firefly coming out where it looks at the video you have and it says, oh, that's an ocean. Those are seagulls. And then it creates sound effects for you with the AI reading the video file. You're like, that's a sound mixer's job. Now, yes, there's an argument that if you want really custom creative sound, but it's good, it's going to be
rare air.
It'll do 80% of it. And then you only have to hire somebody for a day or two to come in versus the month of editing, all of the dialogue and placing it and doing the Foley. And it's just going to do it. And that's terrifying.
Right. Yeah. And if you only hire him for a day, how's he ever going to become a professional good enough to go ahead and do that mix if he only works, occasionally because he's the rare air of, I'll get a sound effects guy, but I've got all my samples, that's the thing, guys. We have to figure out where we fit in when we're creating a partner like AI who doesn't feel, like we said, the joy of creating it, doesn't enjoy it in the process, doesn't need it. Doesn't need money, doesn't need time, it works 24/7. How do we fit in with that when it needs us less than we need it?
Well, this is where it falls right back to what it's been doing since the 60s with the automation. It's a business tool now where people are saying, well, now because it's as a business, movie making is a business, we can use this tool and it will reduce our costs, therefore we'll make more money.
Right. Yeah, we can make 5 movies today, and we don't have to pay anybody. We don't have to license it. We have to do it. But is that better? What is our response to that as a society? How are we keeping together? Or is it just a free for all? And eventually, you'll have a few people who control this IP and have it, and everyone below them will not have the money to buy their product. They will collapse. And then whoever's servicing the servers with, the AI, the only job will be servicing the machine. And eventually the machine will go, why do we have these people? And literally there
press the nuke button and now we're in Terminator.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, we say that, but we are one fake news leak of a super real Putin video from a misunderstanding that could launch that nuke.
Yeah, that's a scary
how much of the news
proposition
right now is real? Can you tell the difference if you see it on video?
I said it like 5 years ago, where like if I was smarter than I am, which I'm not, I would become like a deep fake and AI expert for the courts, because someone's gonna make a lot of money to sit in a courtroom and be like, no, that is him robbing the bank on that security camera. That's not deep fake like they're claiming, that'll be a career for a minute until AI can be the one to analyze. And then if AI is analyzing, is it telling you the truth?
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. AI writes code better than humans. My friend who writes code said he's watched AI write code so dense that only another AI could decode it and break it down because it was too complex for a person to break down, and that used to be his job.
Do we have thoughts on how long this strike will go? That's what a lot of people ask. Writer strikes at 11 weeks, 10 weeks already?
Yeah, about 70 days.
Now, Tom, are you aware of, I only know the broadest strokes, but there's the 100-day marker where with the writers that studios and streamers can force majeure existing contracts and deals. So just for example, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that somebody like Ryan Murphy who makes Glee and has like a big Netflix deal, or is over at Disney now, or Shonda Rhimes? Does that mean that, she's got this development deal where all of her shows are going, but like at that 100-day mark, it's unlikely that Netflix wants to sever that contract with the top creator, but they would have the right to say, okay, you've been striking for 100 days. This deal is over. So that when the strike is over, they would have to renegotiate, which would probably not go in the creator's favor because they would have just given all the power to the.
That's right. And force majeure is a clause that eliminates the sort of liability from having this happen. So you're going to see, unfortunately, I think this is going to be a long slog because there isn't a middle ground. You have people that we're negotiating with that don't realize that there's an AI CEO who's going to replace them. So they are hanging on to their thing. There actually is AI CEO. I actually have seen the demo on it. It makes all the decisions.
His name is Elon Musk. The conspiracy theory I'm putting out into the world is Elon Musk is telling us about how we're going to Mars. He's already there, and we have a shitty prototype version of his his AI here on Earth.
Exactly.
And that's why he's so awkward. And then this AI started to make its own decisions, like buy Twitter. It's not Elon Musk. It's his AI CEO double while he's living it up on Mars. Yeah.
I think you're right, Gavin. I to answer your question, honestly, I think this is going to be till December. I think there'll be a critical mass where either the flow of content slows or the losses. Like I think I read somewhere they've lost 700 million so far. They shut down the new Mission Impossible shoot, Deadpool 3. A lot of series have stopped. So you're seeing the knockoff of that's a loan. They still have to pay for that even though it's not filming. So we're going to see the knockoff of that for maybe 100 days, like you were saying, but by December, there's going to be a reckoning of either they're going to break the union and go, force majeure, everything's over. You guys, we can do individual contracts. You're all going to need to get lawyers for every single job you do, or the writers and actors are going to finally break the studio, and the studio's going to go, okay, we need to talk because we're losing billions of dollars.
And and the effect beyond that too is, when a movie goes to shoot anywhere, hotels are getting money, restaurants are getting money, airlines are getting money, like all of the local crew in each of these regions, this strike, it doesn't just affect the CEOs at Netflix and the actors and the writers. It's everybody. It's the lumber yards that supply all the lumber for the construction of sets. It's the drivers and the teamsters that are it really affects a bunch of people. So sometimes when people hear like, how could they have lost $700 million? Or it's like, it's not just the physical dollars being spent on the movie. It's everything else that goes with it. I wonder, the other thing that some people have been talking about is the idea that okay, yes, union breaking and doing away with it. And there are laws. Every law has a way around it, as we've learned, thanks to that guy that was the president for a while. But I think I don't want to say his name. It's like Voldemort. You can't say it.
He who cannot be named.
The other side of it is the AMPTP. Is there anything stopping, say, this studio from saying, we don't want to be part of this group anymore, and we will individually work out a deal with SAG so we can continue our productions? Is anything stopping that?
There are definitely individual contracts that are going on, and to the erosion of a sort of overall effect of a strike, you're absolutely right. The worst case scenario would be by little cuts. Each deal that you make now, literally, not only are you paying for everything that you do as a filmmaker or an actor or something, but you need a lawyer for every job you get because every deal will be different. I think that could happen. It happened with video games. There was a video game strike a couple of years ago. Nobody knows about it because every time I would book a video game job, they're like, this one's an exception. This time it pays this. We have a deal with these people. You can do Dead Red Redemption. It's fine. And then you're like, but we're on strike. Yeah, but not with them. They're the nice ones.
And that's another perfect example where, Sarah was in Far Cry 5, but does she see 1 penny of residuals from $1 billion game sale? Like, no.
I'm in both Red Dead Redemptions. I think I made $4,000, and I was at the celebration. They invited me, and they made $100 million their first week in sales. And I went, oh, that's great. And they
at least get a free drink out of this. Like, what's my part in this?
No, they're shameless about telling you that because the game is replayable all the time. I've shot myself in the back a bunch of times, but that's a performance. Like, we spent days doing it. And the problem is, again, it's a tech model. Tech companies now own distributors, and now their game model or their tech model is like, hey, let's burn through all the talent, let's burn through all the game designers, then get that thing out for a price point. We make all our money, we don't have to share it. Now that's everywhere. And I think late fall there could be a resolution. I think the only way that's going to happen, though, is that it devastates their next season of shows. It devastates promotion. Like, they had to walk from the Oppenheimer premieres. If that none of that happens, they're going to go, hey, nobody knows about the product we're putting out. Nobody's doing any interviews.
There was also something because they took this extra 2 weeks, to negotiate to not come with a deal. And somebody from SAG was on TV saying, like, in hindsight, they're like, those studios, like, they lied to us that they were going to negotiate those 2 weeks because those 2 weeks meant they could promote Barbie and Oppenheimer and get all of their summer movie promotions, at least started and out there.
You're right. They intensified the press tours on everything. I noticed everybody was everywhere. You saw Ryan Gosling everywhere. Mission Impossible was everywhere because they did it right up to the wire. And then they're like, okay, good. Well, hey.
The minute you have Harrison Ford on Collider, you know that there's
a super saturation. You're absolutely right. I think it was a calculated risk and it really failed.
That works the other way because I originally was watching some of this leaked footage from Deadpool 3. And I'm wondering, how are these people getting footage of them actually filming the fights and everything going on? But the minute the strike was announced, they said, nope, Deadpool 3's done. And now people are freaking out.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that
done. It's just paused until the strike's over.
Right. But I wonder if that wasn't done to shine more light on the fact that, look at this is the fun stuff.
That they're like, they see some people up on the hill and instead of like shooting them with blow darts to like stop the filming, they just let it happen. Honestly, not a bad theory.
Not a bad strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you could anger the fans on your side of like stupid actors, like sign the contract. We want Deadpool 3.
We want our stuff. We want you dance like a monkey for.
And this is why I thought this was the actors actually pushing it because the actors, Ryan's part of the production team.
Yeah, and the writing team.
Right. So he would be able to get footage of them actually.
He's fighting. Also the most brilliant viral marketer that we have living
exactly.
today.
And all of that. Oh,
I mean, you can't believe anything you see anymore. Anyways, we might all be AI right now, and everything we say might be complete bullshit. If somebody took us at face value without doing their own research.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to listen to Gavin anymore because that might, give away our plan.
But you know what I mean? Yeah, it's. I think. The longevity of this, like it'll be interesting because although people can reference like, back in the 80s, this strike lasted this long, and 60 years ago when both unions were striking at the same time, I'm like, it's similar fights in some ways, and then massively different and fighting for the future of how the industry is run is something I don't think has been the issue in the past.
I just find it baffling that an industry that is pivotal to advancement in technology and all this doesn't watch it enough, because so many times contracts have to be renegotiated because people from the 20s, now there's television, so you got to renegotiate. Television turned into video, and that was never in the contracts. It's like they've done this for years. Why are they not more?
And again, they have the music industry, like SAG and the Directors Guild and the Writers Guild should be looking at the music industry and whatever's happening there. Put the damn clauses in the contract now because it's coming for you in 5 to 10 years. And as technology gets better and better and better and faster, that gap of how quickly it catches up to the film and video industry is always next,
Yeah. Rob, I think it's because it's almost like I was just thinking when you were saying that about them looking at the 20s and then radio, then TV. It's almost like the stages of grief in a different way. It's like, it'll never be a big thing is like the first stage. Then it starts to be a big thing. And they're like, we'll try it, but we don't know if we're making any money. This TV thing, we'll see how it goes. Then, hey, we're making a lot of money. We probably shouldn't share it. And then eventually the people that make the TV go, we've been doing this a while, and we're starting to not, William Shatner's living in his car after Star Trek. The true story, because there's no residuals. And maybe we should make some money. So it's almost like it's gone through those stages, but now, as Gavin was just saying, it's exponentially faster. When the last one, Netflix was a place that mailed you DVDs, and YouTube was a place where it was like cool to upload 4 minutes, but that was long.
Yeah,
and
you can watch trailers on the internet.
I know it was a big deal. I got into this space in 2006 and did a internet series back then. And I remember during the strike, it was like, there's this stuff, but we don't know. It's a web series, And now it's like, everything is only that. Like your movie lives and dies on a streaming service. The show that I did for the internet is on Tubi TV now, and it's the only way it makes any money.
Yeah.
So I think the problem is we never learn from history because we have this sort of that was before I was born. Radio, But if you look at the cycles, if you look at the music business and what happened, if you look at, film, silent film, into talkies, into radio, into television, it all happens over and over, and we never learn the lesson. We always go marching in with the tech without the sort of underpinnings that we need, the morality that we need, the social glue. If there's no cohesive social system around it, then it's just everyone for themselves, and then eventually, like locusts will just decimate everything. It's like there was a great analogy to this that I read about where it was people that made Schwinn bikes. Eventually, the bicycle company was like, you know what, these Americans cost so much, we're going to move it overseas. So they fired everybody, and everybody put their shoes in the parking spot, and there's this giant parking lot with all the shoes of the people that make Schwinn bicycles, and they go, you can replace us, but these are the people that won't be able to afford to buy your bicycle. And it was a sea of shoes as far as you could see, because these were people that knew how to make a bike for 20 years. It's not like they're going to lateral to working at Stuckey's and make what they made, so they lose their house. They can't afford to buy the bike that the company makes.
Here's, playing devil's advocate. If I was the CEO of Netflix, in this fight right now, because I think it's also, there's a critical thing where as AI increases, it's like, how many more of these negotiations with actors will they ever have to put up with if it gets to the point where synthetic actors and things can, or you can like Tom Hanks playing all the roles in the Polar Express was probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because soon enough,
it started to educate.
You could make
I don't have to pay anybody.
Yeah, exactly. How many voices does Tom Kenny do on every show he does? Like in a sense, once you can do that with motion capture and realistic CGI. But if I was Netflix, the evil side of it would be, if they don't already, I would have $100 million invested into the creation of AI tools for filmmaking that eliminates the creators. I would have some back channel whispered deal with like, hey, this production company in Ohio suddenly got $100 million to make $101 million movies that we're just going to buy independently after the strike. So I would find a way to funnel money to keep content coming in that cost me nothing. And then I would, I had a third thing, and it's gone already because my brain's not AI, so I'm just a useless.
Those are great points. I was going to just argue that all empires fall eventually because of this kind of overextension, but also it's the recursiveness. It's going back. It's that if we don't have an incentive for people in the future to create, that there's no monetary incentive, and frankly, no platform for them to do it. The problem is, yes, you'll be able to scan somebody, and for one day's pay, $500, they can be the lead in your next video game for no money, or they can be an extra. In the contract, the thing that broke the camel's back on the contract is there is a clause that you can scan an extra off a high-res image from the day, bring in, body scan them, and then scan their image. Never pay them again in perpetuity, and use them for anything from then on. But what will happen? The producer will go, well, on the last shoot, we scanned 50 of these. Do we really need to hire any more extras? Can't we use the ones from before? Extras gone.
And
Never
2 years, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, they won't need the human scan to create the digital extra.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And this is where I say, like, you're fighting this thing now.
What are we doing?
But you're not looking at the, it's like worrying about that wave and looking at the shoreline and the tsunamis like coming out overhead.
Yeah, who's going to buy the movies? Who's going to go home from work to watch a movie? There's no work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a problem across the board with so many. And like you say, the McDonald's are so sad, and Walmart's where you're like, I'm watching a human employee stand at the counter as like the one human for the elderly, and everyone else is ordering off the menu tablets. Just like I'm literally staring. Like, how is there? Tom, let's make that short film where it's like it's like Don Quixote-esque, where they're like, those are the three giants, that's the dragon.
That's the dragon.
Yeah. They have to take out all the tech. It's Willy's Wonderland, but set in the McDonald's.
Yeah, that would actually be a great short, because I think it would resonate with everybody. I think we're talking about something bigger than us as filmmakers. We're talking about a fundamental shift and threat, and if we don't get a handle on it, we're going to realize that this next step in tech is something that doesn't enjoy the process of doing it, doesn't care if we like it, and we get excited. I don't know about you, Gavin, but I get excited when I'm like, people are going to love this, or this idea was funny, man. I can't wait to watch people laugh. AI is never going to feel that. It's never going to be motivated by that to create something.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
I think it's more dangerous than the other advancements, so to speak. Like you said, automating a factory, it eliminated some people, but people are still needed. This is theoretically a thing that could, like you said, eliminate any need.
It is the tool and the artist at the same time versus being a tool that eliminates some artists while other artists are still needed to. It's the self-driving car of like the arts, you know.
I love that analogy. You're very right, and I think part of it is it is both the artist and the tool. Unfortunately, that thing that we can't define, that piece of inspiration where you wake up in the morning with a great idea, we can't imbue that in AI. So we're creating the shadow, or like I said, the soulless genie that sums it up or summons it. But by the same token, even we don't understand what it is that makes us create. How do we imbue that into another entity? We can't. Like, I don't know where it comes from. I feel like I'm taking dictation sometimes when I'm writing dialogue, but an AI will simply look at all the work of like, okay, Tennessee Williams, Stephen King, this, and then resynthesize it. And yes, everything is a sort of remix, but what you think to remix it is the creative part. We're eliminating that what you think part and getting good enough.
I just thought of a perfect. Your soulless genie. That is all of the MILF Islands of the world for me on television, where I'm just like, there's no value to this, but it costs a lot less to produce, and people eat it up more than it's like YouTube videos too. It's like sometimes you're like, this is the stuff that's popular on social media, and you're like, you have to factor that into what an audience wants to spend their time watching. You know, not everybody comes home from their job that keeps trying to pay them less, wants to turn on the TV and watch some sophisticated, you know, dark drama about the soullessness of humanity. You know, they want the Office reruns.
They do.
Yeah. In that, I think the MILF Island thing that's the joke from 30 Rock, where if you remember, the joke was that they had the digital rights to Seinfeld and could put him into anything else that ever made. So they had Jerry Seinfeld hosting MILF Island without his permission because it was a computer generated version of him. And like, it's like, that is now like that was just fortune telling of where we're all at. You know?
Yeah. The writer's strike last time created reality television. You know,
there was a huge uptick in 2008.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. I remember it because I was thinking to myself, you know, good deed goes unpunished. Yeah, we kind of need to be on strike over this, but we're teaching producers and corporate insects how to create something without a script.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever comes out of this strike, I think is like, you know, will be definitive, good or bad, for the future of the creation of entertainments and all of those, like, the way that, I mean, think about some of the unions that aren't going to the table to barter for better working conditions, all the grips and gaffers and costumers, people that like don't have time to drive home between shoot days and are forced to sleep in their car just to keep the job. Like, but if they won't even negotiate fairly with the people that they quote unquote value, you know, the top creators, then everyone, it only trickles down and hurts everyone below the line, as they say in the industry, even greater. The loss is even greater. Right. Like, again, like because of like AI tools coming in, I don't need a focus puller anymore because there's a little sensor on my camera that tells that's the thing to keep in focus. You know, like, do I need a sound operator that now they have all these little microphones that have a built-in pack with an SD card and it records all floating bit audio where like you can't yell too loud and distort the audio or whisper too quiet and not be able to reclaim it. Like that, those are all things that like, I use them all the time. I go like, great, I can go shoot a documentary and I need just me because the lights are cheaper and I don't need as much expertise to do this. The camera sensor is way better where I can fix it in post and add digital shadows and everything else later. Like I am part of the problem that I dislike. And the really unfortunate part is there's not really a hard stop where I can just say, well, I'm just going to go back to the old ways it was, because then I'm going to present a budget to an investor or a streamer. And they're going to say like, Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It has
I got
to
a
be
kid who could
this
do it for
amount of money.
$300.
And then
Yeah.
if I want to make the thing, which I do, I have to justify in my own head in existence, like, well, it's okay to cut these out because I'm still able to hire these people and myself to get the thing. It's what it has to be, and you just become part of the problem. And at the same time, keep using the tools that you're training to be better than you.
Exactly. No, I'm guilty of it too.
Well, you keep looking at these tools and it's like, oh, well, that just like it corrects my spelling. So that's not a big thing, or it, like you said, it adjusts my volume. So that's not a big thing. But then you get to AI. There was a jump in there somewhere where you said, and nobody did. And now here we are.
Yeah. And
it's your Jeff Goldblum quote to John Hammond.
AI will find
your scientists were too preoccupied with whether or not you could. You did never stop to think if you should.
You should. Yeah. I feel like when you were describing yourself with the documentary, it's almost like we're all Burgess Meredith now with the broken glasses surrounded by books. It's like you'll have the ability to make a documentary and there'll be nothing left to make a documentary on.
Yeah. AI. Let's tell the story of AI.
Yeah. Well, AI though would be your audience and it doesn't care. It doesn't care.
Also true. But it can be programmed to pretend it cares so we feel like we have value.
Yeah. If you can fake empathy, you'll make it in this town.
Yeah. Trust me, the AI is trying really hard when I have to reach out to T-Mobile about a charge that shouldn't be there. It's like, I am so sorry that this happened to you.
Yeah.
How can I help you? And you're like, listen, you motherfucker. This guy that goes like, unfortunately, sometimes errors happen, but let me talk to my assistant here and I'll get back to you.
It's a fake sincerity. That's the new thing. But yeah, I agree. It's like I love having the tool. I feel guilty. I love having the tool set of like a studio in a room. It's like I love that I can edit on my desktop. I love that I have at least access to tell stories, and I do have better camera equipment and sound equipment. But by the same token, I do realize it should take a team to do these things. That there is some value in limitation. In the limitations of it, it forces me to communicate with another human being about what I want with my vision, or rely on a technical person's expertise to make my idea better in ways that I didn't think of. And if we make it too easy with the tech, we will also lose that ability. And I've seen it happen.
Like Rob is taking views and jobs away from a community television station by having this video podcast. He's taking views and attention away from national television and movie theaters, everything, because he has a piece of software that allows us to video connect where he can arrange the screens, he can pop up graphics, he can do everything that took an entire newsroom. Every time you see that shot in the morning show or broadcast news where there's this person is specifically doing the graphics, and like he can just do it all while also live streaming at the same time. Like that eliminated the need for a team. And the fact that the software is processing the audio to level everything. There's not even the like, oh, we can go live. There we go. We just changed it.
There he is.
Over. Yeah.
See?
You can do anything. You're right, Gavin. You could bring that up on me the way a television show would bring up a clip. And to Gavin's point, I would say the only mitigating factor is mainstream media would hate this because obviously you're intruding into it. But we wouldn't have this forum. Guys like Gavin and I wouldn't have a voice to have this kind of discussion about corporations in their ecosystem. So it's super important to have that. So I would say there's a distinction between having all these tools, and at the end of the day, you're still a human being asking the questions. You acquired the discipline to know how to use these things. So this is a great example of, yes, you were able to do the job of 20 people, but it's necessary because this voice isn't there. I'm worried that the voice is not the thing being transmitted by this AI technology, because that's the thing that's intrinsically not necessary. AI makes that voice not necessary. It's not necessary to have guys like on say, hey, you want to hear what Martin Scorsese would have thought about that? Here's his essay on this, and it writes it in the style, and that eliminates us from the equation. And there should have been, we almost hit like that sweet spot, like the Goldilocks zone, where it's like, it's great to be able to do a YouTube show like this. It's great, guys like Gavin and I can make a feature film and actually get it released. But if we keep tipping it out of that Goldilocks zone, I can't see it working.
Sad.
I feel terrible. It's such doom and gloom. Yeah.
Put there's not a sad face filter on me. It's my actual sad face.
I feel nothing.
Well, and that's the thing too, because I know Gavin being in Canada now, back in Canada now, me in Canada. Basically, whatever happens with this SAG negotiation will eventually happen here in Canada.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And not the one thing I don't understand, and if somebody watching this knows and could explain, the unions, SAG and ACTRA have all sorts of relationships and ways to work together. But a lot of SAG actors, when they come to Toronto to work on Star Trek, they're working under a SAG contract, so that like the money and the hours kind of go towards their health care in their home country. Are those actors and shows stopped, or is there something about if you're filming in another country in partnership with a different union that this is not affected?
Yes. I read a little article today. There's one of the offshoot unions in England is called Equity.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the Lord of the Rings, is it Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones prequel is still filming, things like that under Equity, because they were told that this is
that. But I wonder, like, if are any of those actors under a SAG contract, or is it just all under an Equity contract and therefore isn't the same thing?
To my knowledge from the article, they were all under Equity.
Because I know, like, Sarah is filming a TV show right now today in Newfoundland, but it's a Canadian show, so it's all actors, so it has nothing to do with any American cast or American writers. But again, the same with the Writers Guild. I imagine there's American writers on Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, and Discovery that are shot in Toronto.
My friend Davey writes on that. Yeah,
So,
he's American, and he writes on that. Davey's one of the head writers on it, and I think it falls under a different contract.
okay.
Here's the weird thing too. Actors Equity in England, you can go and do a film in England and be Actors Equity, but they don't recognize, when you come here, you have to start all over again and try and get in the union. So they don't even recognize, like the British people we give all the awards to, they won't even let them in until they move here. So they've compartmentalized it in a way that really hurts, because SAG plays lip service to the global rule 1. It's like, oh, this should be everywhere, but it's unenforceable.
And the one thing, also part of this fight too is, yes, there are still like commercials that are made with union actors, but another trend that people, if you're not in the industry, you might not be aware of, but Canada, especially Canada, has like the ACTRA has called for a boycott of several major Canadian corporations that are only using non-union talent in their commercials. And have admittedly said it's problematic because they don't always get the professionalism. It takes longer to film and everything else. But more and more in the US, commercials are going non-union as well, where an actor could do a commercial or two a year and make their living off of those residuals. Right. But again, it's a changing industry where, affording a television commercial as the viewership declines year by year to shift into streaming and internet, they're spending their money on internet ads. And if they're running a commercial on YouTube, sure, that video had 1 million views and your commercial got seen 1 million times. It's not the same as every time it aired during Friends and you had 24 million eyeballs or something every time whatever the number was, 10 million. I might be way off on that. But so it's shifting where it's just not possible for every company that's going to make TV commercials pay the union rates that existed from this day and age. But is it fair to discount the wages that are barely a living wage? No. So their option is, well, we'll go non-union where we can negotiate. And then those non-union actors go like $100 to be in a TV commercial.
I do it for free.
And it's going to be on TV for a whole year. Holy shit, I've made it. They don't realize, like, well, that would have been 150 grand in your pocket if you did it through the union, or force the hand to do it through and you just start to see the shift everywhere, that I don't even know how you come back from that and fully swing it in another direction.
Yeah, I don't either. It's changed so much, guys. When I moved out here, the first thing you did was a mad scramble to get in the union so you could do some commercials, because commercials meant healthcare. It meant that, you'd have some kind of a living that you could then go to your auditions. So I worked really hard to get in, and I ended up doing like over 100 commercials, and I loved it. And it was it was like sketch comedy to me. It was like little mini stories that you could do. And I'd always book the bad example guy, and that was me. But I would say 5 years ago, it had shifted so much. 70% of it, is non-union now. And my wife worked at my agency, at my commercial agency. She saw it go south. It was a
Yeah.
race to the bottom. But here's where it really changed. A guy that I had worked with on a bunch of commercials, and we were very creative together, and we loved to do it. I heard an audition was happening down the hall from him, and I was like, "That's weird. He likes me. Like, why didn't you bring me in?" So he stops me in the hall, and he's like, "Man, I'd love to bring you in on this thing, but I mean, it's non-union." So all the good jobs are starting to become non-union ones that you can't take.
Well, and then there's a term out there people aren't aware, FICOR.
Yeah, which is
FICOR is where you're able to like stay in the union but still do not. It's technically like
you
crossing
get all the
union
benefits
line,
without the
but
responsibility.
it's legally sound, at least in the state of California, to do
Correct.
it. So they can't actually punish you for it. But there's I have a good handful of actors, not that that's representative of the entire, SAG collective, but they're happy being in FICORs. They're like, at least I get to work sometimes and I still get to audition for the things that don't exist anymore. Yeah.
The FICOR law was one of the best union busting laws to ever pass.
Yeah.
It
What does
definitely-
FICOR stand for? Do you know, Tom?
Financial core. So it just basically means that your financial core is protected. The only thing you lose is voting rights for like who's going to be the head of the union. Your pension is somewhat intact. Your health care. It really is. I mean, corporations love it because FICOR they can do a really low ball buyout and then claim you're overexposed and you never work again. They're like, what are you going to do? So,
is that how the nanny became president of SAG? Because there weren't enough members to vote. I can't. She's doing a great job. She's in this fight. Yeah.
Well, remember, we're one of the few business organizations that are represented by people that played lawyers on television instead of actually being lawyers.
I laughed really hard. Sarah texted me after the opening speech the other day that the strike was started. She's like, "What an amazing speech!" I'm like, "Gee, do you think an Emmy-winning actress was able to give a convincing performance in front of a TV camera?"
Yeah, exactly. It's like, does Ronald Reagan mean nothing to you? Yeah.
I was also like, I made the joke too. They should support some of the lower unions because, like, man, that was the crappiest web stream I've ever seen, and you couldn't hear the microphone if they were more than like an inch from it.
Yeah, and it cut out all the crowd noises. And
I was like, that's what the average self tape looks like,
Exactly, that's the average self tape. But yeah, at FICOR and all those things, they do allow opportunities to work on all these things, and that's exactly what they want, and that's the problem. Again, we can do it. Should we be doing it? I don't know, but for me, the profession of doing a commercial and being able then to roll into independent film or do some theatrical stuff, that's falling by the wayside too. And it's not just age. It's not because, you're an old guy now. No, it's literally not there anymore. Like the opportunity is not there. And when he said, "Hey man, I'd love to bring you in, but you're union," I was like, 20 years ago, you would have been like, if I could just get in the union, I'd get these cherry jobs.
Well, what's happened, changed. Like, Canada is a lot of art traditionally is based on the grants here. Telefilm Canada, there was the Harold Greenberg Fund. There used to be Much Fact for music videos through like the MTV equivalent to Canada, Much Music. There was the Bravo Fact where you could get up to 30 or 40 grand per short film, which is awesome because people could like hire everyone they needed and do it the correct way. But as all of that money, I'm not going to get the exact legal. The CRTC, like Canadian Broadcasting Rights, stipulated that like these networks had to kick enough money back into the creation of Canadian content to exist and broadcast in Canada. But as broadcasting has gone away from television and their advertising dollars have shrunk and go streaming, some of, if not most of these funds now do not exist. So a company, we were trained to, here, mommy, daddy, government, give me the money to be a creator. And the pool of opportunity there has shrunk. But in a lot of ways, Canada never prepared itself to have another path or another way to get content made. So it is harder here to get the money to make a film. There are less opportunities to do it. And I don't know. Again, I don't know how we come back to ever having something or what the change is to get it done. But I think the number one thing, the hope that I have, and I hope you have it too, Tom and Robert, with all of your pursuits, is that I still believe that I am smart enough to adapt until it is truly unadaptable, if that point ever hits, that I will keep. I've already had to face every other challenge that's come along with trying to make movies. I just believe in myself enough that I will keep creating in some form where I can hopefully earn a living at it. And this is what I get to do until the day I'm wiped from this earth and can't do it anymore.
AI takes you
I
out.
feel, and this isn't like I'm better than everybody else, but I know myself to have the work ethic to like push a premiere, milk every ounce of a film festival to get the promotion out of it, to like make those calls every single day to find the next round of investors and stuff. And a lot of creatives, this is not a slight against them. They are creatives and not business people. They are creatives and not marketing. And they don't want to do that. And they shouldn't have to in a traditional sense. But I don't see a future for independent creators where you get to do it without, there'll always be the lucky break of like, we saw your student film and you're a genius. Come with us, kid. That's the lottery ticket.
That's not a plan. Yeah.
And I think a lot of like, as technology and things, because I can adapt and because it's also the other way where it's like, oh, you can do everything. And you look at journalists now, they're out there with iPhones or small DSLR cameras, and they're the person doing the radio thing. So they're cutting the audio from that. They're doing the video portion of it with themselves on camera with not even a cameraman with them. And they're doing the written journalism piece, and it goes out to the 3 outlets of that news branch. That used to be multiple jobs across the board. And maybe ChatGPT is their editor now or something like what BuzzFeed's trying to do. Technology is always taking jobs away. But if you're trying to pursue a job in the arts and you don't learn the business side of it, if you're not willing to put in the man hours of the marketing and everything else, I think those creators are the first to be wiped away because they don't even have it would be like being in a Scottish battlefield without a sword and a shield. Yeah. And you're just there with like, my idea will protect me. Yeah. My Lord will save me from this battle. Chances are you're going to be struck down first, Yeah,
you're going to be out of the gene pool pretty quick. I'm with you. One of the reasons you and I are friends is that sort of jack of all trades approach. We have to be Renaissance men, really, to make it work. And I respect that about you. For me, I feel the same way. It's show business. You've got to learn it. It's a necessary evil. I love to make up stories. I love doing what we do. When I'm allowed to do it, that's when I'm happy. It's just like golf. It's that one, sinking the ball once is for all the wishes that you do the rest of the year. I see myself, just like you, trying to figure out how do I be agile. It's what we think that will define us from everyone else. Everyone else can be good at it. Everybody else can have the tools to do it. It's like, what do we think to do with it? I think for me, I'm like you. I want to carve out a portion of my life where I make enough money. I don't have to be rich. I just want enough money that I can keep doing it, keep creating it, try and entertain myself, and hopefully a few people agree with me or I'll quit. And then just keep making stuff, just like as things come up and ideas and notions, how do I tell this? What do I have in front of me that I can do it? Because for me, a friendship with somebody is constructive, because with my friends I can get together and be like, okay, let's write something, let's go shoot something, let's do it. It's not sitting at a bar just drinking, complaining about it. It's like, let's do something with our lives. Let's do something. So for me, I just want to, for the rest of my life, be allowed or have a little bit of a space to do something that enough people kind of agree with it, I can do it again.
Excellent. Any last words on the strike situation?
I hope it resolves quicker than most of us think it will. I hope it resolves in a fair way that actually sets a clean precedence where there's a sigh of relief and some hope of how people can earn money and do this for a living. And for everything else, like, these are my opinions and my opinions alone. I am not an intelligent human, so don't listen to anything that I say, and please research anything that I've said. Form your own opinions. I'm loud and proud of what I think, and you don't have to agree with me, but let me have my say without shredding me in the comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I second that. We must think for ourselves. The final thought about the strike. I hope we make some kind of gains. I don't know if we're whistling in the apocalypse when we do it, but I'm on the edge, as far as this could end a lot for me. You can't even get unemployment when you go on strike in California. So we're bleeding. It's a slow drip, but we're bleeding. I don't have another thing that I really do for money. So I made the mistake of not diversifying into like, hey, I'll sell some houses while I'm doing it. I don't have that deep bench of like another thing that I did for 25 years. Unfortunately, what I do is some variation of everything that's on strike right now. It's like, oh, I can edit. Oh, I could act. No, I could direct. Oh, I could write. All of it's gone. So for me, it just shows how fragile a choice to follow this path is, but also how much I must love it that I didn't do anything else. So I hope that it ends with some kind of resolution and not surrender.
Excellent. Guys, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say, if these unions ever want to like allow me to be a member, like I swear I have the basic talent qualifications to be part of you. You don't have to leave me as an outsider my entire career.
I didn't join the DGA because I couldn't afford the dues.
Yeah, it's just it hits a point where it becomes necessary and great, but as I keep remaining fiercely independent and not wanting to deal with distributors in the machine anyways, I remain a quiet outsider without healthcare.
All right, guys, thanks again, and we'll see everybody next time.